A recent news of an Indian intelligence officer getting appointed as a Mauritius national security advisor surprised many. But this is an arrangement that came into existence in early 1980s and with it a lesser known operation. The operation was initially supposed to be a joint operation by Indian Army and the Indian Navy. But ultimately, only India's external spy agency R&AW's influence was used to prevent a coup in Mauritius and also a possible exodus of Indian origin Mauritians. This was a classic case of information warfare. Yep. Our agencies have been in the thick of this game since very long. What India's intelligence agency had achieved back then laid foundation for a permanent bond between Mauritius and Indian government. We'll tell you the story, a success story without firing a single bullet. Hello everyone, welcome to Resonant News. Before we tell you about the operation, let us introduce you to a special connection India and Mauritius share. In a recent development, former Indian intelligence officer Vivek Johri has been appointed as the National Security Advisor of Mauritius, a key role in ensuring the security and stability of the island nation. This news came as a surprise to many, as no one expected an Indian citizen, and that too an intel officer, to be appointed at a high post within the government in Mauritius. The appointment of a National Security Advisor for Mauritius by India is not a recent development. It has been part of an enduring arrangement since 1983. This practice was initiated following the Operation Lal Dora, or the Red Thread. This strategic move was aimed at preventing a potential coup in the region in 1980s, which may have led to the exodus of Indian origin citizens of the island nation. Mauritius has since then consistently relied on India as its first responder in matters of national security. Historically, this arrangement has seen 20 Indian intelligence officers serve as its national security advisors. India's involvement in Mauritius is not merely strategic, it is deeply rooted in the demographic composition of the island nation. Approximately 68% of Mauritius' population is of Indian origin, making it a nation with a strong cultural and historical ties to India. Now, a little bit of history. In early 1800s, when Mauritius was controlled by Britishers, some 41,000 Indians were sent to the plantations in Mauritius. Before this, the French had also sent some Indian masons and artisans to Mauritius. This was the times of colonial masters. Britishers left Mauritius in 1968. By then, the island nation had begun to be known as Little India or Chota Bharat. In 1980s, India sensed that a certain section within Mauritius was planning exodus of Indian origin Mauritians. In February 1983, President of Mauritius, R&AW Jagannath, travelled to New Delhi to request assistance in the event of a coup led by Paul Berenger. R&AW Jagannath was facing a power struggle. While Jagannath was of Indian origin, his opponent Paul Berenger wasn't. Berenger was pro-Soviet. Back in the day, Soviets were India's friends, and India wasn't bothered about his leaning towards Soviet, but it was Berenger's support for Libya's president, Muammar Gaddafi, that made India apprehensive. According to reports, Gaddafi was one of the main funders of Pakistan's nuclear program. This is why India was against Berenger's rise in Mauritius. By March 1983, Jagannath's government disintegrated, with Berenger and most of the cabinet resigning, leaving Jagannath with only a small number of mostly Hindu followers. The collapse of government heightened communal tensions, and Jagannath feared for his safety amid reports of the formation of workers' militia. This is why Jagannath had requested India to intervene. A military intervention was planned with the approval of the Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and ex-R&AW chief and the then National Security Advisor R&AW. The objective of this planned military intervention was to come to the rescue of Anirudh Jagannath and lead government which was facing political crisis in March 1983. Indian government initially decided to call for amphibious landing of troops from the 54th Division in Mauritius to thwart any attempted coup. India's military plans also included the deployment of major naval assets, including as many as 6 destroyers with Alouette helicopters and Mk-42C Sea Kings for slithering operations. But this operation would have taken time and hence becoming dead on arrival. Also, the operation would have attracted international attention. So finally it was decided to send Research and Intelligence Wing's then Chief Naushar F. Santook to supervise a large intelligence-led operation to unite the Indian community in Mauritius. The unity of Indian community in Mauritius was disintegrating along the ideological and communal lines, and these circumstances would have assisted Mr. Beringer. In Port Louis, Santook was assisted by Prem Singh, the Indian High Commissioner. Since his appointment in 1982, Singh had already become a well-known supporter of Jagannath. Santook and Mr. Singh worked with a Hindu community leader called Harish Bodo and other Indian origin leaders to persuade them to swing their support behind Jagannath. Apparently, various means were employed to ensure they supported Jagannath. Meanwhile, a rumor began spreading that India was surrounding Mauritius. The rumor had ended up becoming to sound so real that Beringer, out of fear, finally backed out. Nope, not a bullet was fired to dissuade him. Meanwhile, efforts of Jagannath and his Indian backers to build a new Hindu coalition were successful. Jagannath formed a new pro-India based political party, which gained the numbers to form a new government in Mauritius. After elections, Jagannath immediately appointed Major General J.N. Tamini, an Indian Army officer on deputation to R&AW, as the Mauritian National Security Advisor, a post that he then occupied for more than a decade. Since then, it has been accepted that the post will be filled by an Indian appointee, usually an R&AW officer. R&AW had once again proven its mettle. Soon after that operation, Mauritius became a listening post for the Indian Navy, which buttressed a 1974 agreement of sending Indian defence officers on deputation to Coast Guard and Helicopter Squadron. Today, 35 to 40 Mauritian police officials train every year at the Indian Defence Training Academies. Ex-Naval Intel Chief Rajiv Rai, in his report, has also mentioned that Indian Army was apprehensive of an attack in Mauritius, and this could be a possible reason why the operation was cancelled. Also, some say that the operation was named Lal Dora after the red thread worn by Hindus on their hands. Hope you enjoyed the video. Do post your feedback. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.